All right, folks, here we go with the notes for Chapter 10, The Character in the Copy. Breaking this chapter up into 2 videos, and we'll kick things off here with Section 1 of your notes. Asking the question, how will you play the role? And within that question is basically a decision between 2 different approaches. Are you a voice actor or are you a voice talent? We've talked in previous chapters about what the author means by the differences in those 2 different definitions. Voice actor being someone that focuses more on the idea of character and those sorts of things, where a voice talent is more closer to a traditional voiceover sort of idea. The thing of it is, when you are performing a script as a voice actor, you are playing a role. The words and situations are not yours. They are those of a character who may be substantially different from you. For voice talent, the opportunities for voiceover work will be limited simply because they are seen by casting directors and producers as only being able to do one thing or have only one sound. So it's making that distinction between the ability to have different types of vocal presentation, to have different types of variety and inflection and attitude in your voice, as opposed to being stuck to a limited number of different options that you are able to lend your voice to in order to be credible in various areas. There's 2 types of actors out there, and they're very distinct approaches to how to perform and create characters. First one is the celebrity actor. The celebrity actor develops a strong and highly identifiable performing style that is at the foundation of every role. Now, when you are performing as a celebrity actor, the acting style is completely appropriate for the roles they choose to play. So it's not meant to be a diminishing sort of thing. It's what they do well. But here's the thing of it. Their characters are believable largely because there is some aspect of the character role that is very similar to the actor. Colloquially, a lot of people call this typecasting, where the roles that are portrayed seem to have a certain consistency from role to role to role, or that character is very much identifiable with the actor himself or herself. If you are designing your performance based on how you yourself would handle a situation, your performance may risk sounding like you doing the words, and there may or may not be anything unique or special about your performance. So it can be a very limiting sort of thing to try to put more of yourself into a voice performance. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but if you're not able to branch out from that, then there's going to be a limited number of opportunities that you would be able to lend your voice to. Now, the other type of voice actor would be a character actor. This is an approach in which a wide range of acting skills and abilities are developed, and that allows the actor to create many different emotions, attitudes, personalities that are outside of who they really are. So there's much more opportunity to be able to take on roles that may not necessarily be ones that reflect your own personal temperament. Allows you to play around a little and be a little more something that you are not when you lend your voice to a project. Now, both approaches to voiceover work are completely valid. There's nothing wrong with being a character actor. There's nothing wrong with being a celebrity actor. They have their value. They have their worth, each in their own way. Your individual abilities may direct you to follow one path or the other. You may be a masterful reader of stories, or you may be a creator of characters that tell their stories. Whatever is best for you. This is part of that idea of finding your signature voice. What do you do? What do you do well? What are things that perhaps you can develop and become skilled at with practice over time? And what are some things that are probably just not going to be a good fit for you? Those things take careful, objective, critical analysis and being honest with yourself in that, so that when you put yourself out there and lend your voice to projects, you are putting yourself out in a way that you are optimal for the types of work that you are doing. Now, a common dilemma with performers just learning the craft of voice acting is the thought that they are lying or they're being untruthful when they perform the role of the character who expresses thoughts, ideas, beliefs, opinions, anything that may be radically different from those that the actor himself or herself would hold, that somehow they're being false in or a fraud in the way that they're presenting themselves in a way that they themselves would never really act. Another dilemma kind of related to that would be a performer feeling guilty for getting paid to read a script for a product that he or she doesn't believe in or doesn't use himself or herself. So it's that idea of, am I causing a moral issue by portraying something that is not innately genuine within myself, or talking about something that I personally don't hold a stake in or a passion in or agree with the opinions in which I'm saying. The underlying precept in all forms of acting is that it is the actor's job to create a believable reality of the moment for the character that he or she is playing. Notice character is the word that's underlined and you're filling in on your notes, because again, it's not about you. It's about the character to whom you are lending voice to, and you are creating a believable character. You're acting. Without a disconnect of personal beliefs, it is extremely difficult to create a believable and compelling character. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are telling you to throw caution to the wind and be willing to say or do anything, especially if you hold to a particular belief system or value system, an ethics or a philosophy that just doesn't allow you to participate in a certain type of material. Those things should very much be considered. In my career in broadcasting, there were times that I was asked to read commercial copy for various types of alcohol. And the faith system that I am a part of has a zero tolerance for alcohol. And I didn't feel in good conscience that it would be appropriate for me to read a commercial that promoted the use of alcohol. So I would refuse to do those sorts of commercials. Now, does that mean that you need to do that? Well, that's completely up to you. If you feel as though you can't reconcile participating in a script while holding on to who you believe you truly are, and that it causes that moral dilemma for you, then by all means do not feel bad about refusing to do certain types of work. But at the same time, there's not necessarily an issue in terms of the industry of lending your voice to something that might not necessarily reflect who you yourself are, because again, the main point is that you are not you when you're doing a performance. You are your character. Now, your best tool is your own personality. When you know yourself, you can tap into parts of your personality to move more effectively in telling the story and giving life to the character in the copy. And the best way for you to learn more about yourself is to ask questions and to find the most appropriate answers to those questions. Now, it can be something as deep as what is the meaning of life, and it could be something very simple like what flavors do you enjoy tasting? All those things are going to kind of create a certain bias in you in terms of how you look at things and honestly how you look at your character in light of those things. There's several questions that you can ask. Your textbook has a pretty good representation of some of the ones that you can ask of yourself to help guide you in this process. I would encourage you to take a look at those. Now, the two boxes. Everyone has a box which contains his or her thoughts, their beliefs, their emotions, their attitudes. And then there's another box because your character has a box as well. You need to understand the real you and how you exist in your box before you can fully understand how your character exists in his or her box. You need to know yourself, know what you excel at, know what your limitations are, before you can begin to try to get into someone else's space. You have to be able to relate yourself to the character in order to effectively kind of understand that character and how you can portray that with the voice that you have, and how to adjust your voice to meet the character where the character is at. Then once you've climbed into your character's box, once you understand where your character is coming from, you need to be able to let go of the real you and experience how the character you are portraying lives and behaves. We're talking about theater of the mind here. You don't have the advantage of props or flashy lighting or wardrobe or makeup or scenery or anything else. All you have are the words on a piece of paper and your individual creativity. You have to make your voice work in such a way that it paints that picture in the mind of the listener and communicates as closely as possible the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions, the attitudes, the meaning, the connotation of the message that you are portraying, so that the listener gets exactly what they are intended to get. Some basic elements of good theater. So list for you 5 items. Interesting characters with wants and needs at this moment in time, because we're engaging with that audience in the present moment. The characters are engaging with the audience in the present moment. It's about the here and now. Another element, a story or sequence of events that builds and leads to a climax. Thirdly, conflict in one or more forms. There has to be some sort of problem that needs to be solved. Fourthly, the resolution of said conflict, or perhaps a non-resolution of the conflict, usually in an interesting or an unexpected sort of manner, so that the meaning of the message gets impressed in the mind of the listener. And finally, closure, in which any loose ends are satisfactorily resolved. So we're talking about the basis of not just building a story, but telling and communicating that story. All these elements help to keep a listener engaged with what it is that you have to say. Now, there's a couple of good exercises for you in your textbook that I would encourage you to take a look at. The following along with the textbook on these exercises can help you to really understand what it is to get into the mind of your character. And I would encourage you to take a look at those. Note that on your notes, the visualization script says page 179. It's actually on page 184 if you're using the current edition of the textbook. So at that point, we're going to take a break and we'll cover the rest of the notes in part B of this video. So I will see you over there.